relax, but if you want to share what you want to see, don't hesitate. What happened there?
Hello guys, welcome one more time to Ring Royalty. My name is Alexis, as you already know, and here we have a beautiful guest one more time. This is her third time in the channel. She's going to become a regular. Once again, our guest, Alex Ann. How are you?
I am good. How are you?
Not that nervous anymore. I am a bit more confident, and I hope that we do a good job.
Yeah, I love hearing what they have to say to see if we share the same opinions or not. There's more parts to come. Relax, but if you want to share what you want to see, don't hesitate. What happened there?
Today, we're going to talk about 5 more storylines because we're going to cover up 5 in each video. So like Alex Ann said, try to be patient because maybe your storyline or your favorite storyline is coming in the future.
I'm still nervous because my English isn't always perfect, but part of my charm. So.
Our first rivalry is back from 2002/2003, and we're going to talk about Torrie Wilson against Dawn Marie. In my opinion, one of the most underrated feuds ever. Basically, this was the era that I like to call the Torrie Wilson show, and sadly they were fighting for nothing, which makes some feuds maybe less relevant.
I remember mostly the funeral part, the honeymoon part obviously definitely led to that. And I also agree with what you said because it's underrated, and maybe it's because it's Dawn Marie. I mean, most people just forget about her. They remember Torrie obviously for millions of reasons, but I feel like we forget about Dawn Marie. And she was decent. She wasn't the best, but neither was Torrie to me.
This was the Torrie Wilson show era, so basically the star was Torrie Wilson, and feuding with her, I mean, could make Dawn relevant, but at the same time she was a relevant jobber. So let's put some context into this rivalry. Basically, Dawn Marie started to flirt with Torrie Wilson's dad, very interesting angle, and we reached a point where literally Torrie Wilson's real life dad, kayfabe, married Dawn Marie, and he died in their honeymoon because of too much action going on. And after that, we have the iconic funeral segment. It was a bit edgy because they were playing with someone's death, I guess, and that's something that they wouldn't do now, but back then it was something really creative because they used to get out of the box a lot when they were not PG.
Yeah, no, that was the funniest era for them. Like you said, PG, now they're careful most of the times with what they do. So back then they could do anything and people were just on board with it. Now people are just too fragile for stuff like that.
The end game for this rivalry was basically the Royal Rumble event in 2003 when they faced a stepmother against stepdaughter match.
Just like the rest of their matches, it wasn't the most memorable part, I guess. I mean, that was a nice way to finish the storyline.
Yeah, because I mean, they faced each other again later that year, but it wasn't like a rivalry anymore. It was more like random matches because, you know, SmackDown used to have lots of random matches just to put the girls in the show somehow. This feud was good for me. I love storytelling. I've mentioned that in the past. And this was an entertaining story.
Storytelling is, to me, more important in feud than wrestling. If you have 2 of the best wrestlers and your storytelling sucks, nobody's gonna get over with the feud for the most part.
What's your highlight out of this rivalry?
I'm gonna go with the funeral because, like you said, it was iconic, and the casket being broken and Torrie crying on the floor, and so dramatic, but it was so fun, if you can say, even for a funeral.
Yeah, I mean, that is my highlight too. It was so ridiculous that it was entertaining. Like, it was so good. And Dawn Marie, I think she grabbed a lamp and broke the lamp on Torrie Wilson's back, so she fell right beside the casket. And I was like, did they both die or what happened?
Yeah, it was like too much drama, but that was like good.
We all need drama in our lives. Just a little bit.
No,
Maybe.
that would make it good, because if it wasn't not oversell, but so like that, perhaps that wouldn't have the same impact, and we wouldn't be talking about it now.
Yeah, that's so true. So respect for Dawn Marie. I mean, she did lots back in SmackDown from 2002 to 2004, and she deserves a little bit more of appreciation.
Yeah, she does. Feud number 2, Mickie James versus Trish Stratus. That's a feud we have a lot to talk about. To me, probably the best feud ever made. Because not only was it good storytelling and it was well built, but it was also amazing wrestling matches.
True. This is the only feud I can remember that lasted for about half a year and maybe even more than that. This feud basically started with Mickie James' debut. So we're talking about 6 or 7 months in the making storyline. It was really good, and the reason why it's so iconic is because WWE gave time to both of them to develop characters inside the feud, and at the same time build something slowly so it wouldn't seem rushed like most feuds nowadays.
It's rare for me to like a feud that goes for so long, because usually they just have 2 or 3 months where it's just boring and nothing, but it was built stronger every week, every segment they had. People didn't really know Mickie James before that. So for her to went from here to here in the space of, let's say, a year maybe, that's a lot. I mean, they built her career based on that. If she didn't have that, I'm not sure she would be where she is now. I mean, she's a great wrestler. We're not going to take that away from her. But if she didn't have that feud, would she have the rest with Lita and Melina, Beth, and the rest after that? I don't know.
That's a good point, and I think the reason why they trust Mickie so much is because besides Victoria and Trish Stratus, because Lita was basically in a managing role in that time, none of the girls there were really wrestlers. A lot of veterans left, like Molly and Jazz and Ivory, and we start to get newer people, but with zero wrestling skills, like Candice Michelle, Maria. So they needed someone that actually knows how to wrestle to have a believable contender for Trish. And I think Mickie was there in the right place, in the right time. Let's talk about memorable moments in this feud. The first one that I remember being Tabo Tuesday Battle Royal, where Mickie James started to save Trish Stratus until the point that she pissed off Victoria. And in the end, Mickie eliminated Victoria and herself to make Trish retain the title.
I like the part when they added Ashley and the kidnapping stuff. That was so weird.
That segment was so edgy, but it was so unique. I mean, we're talking about kidnapping. Mickie literally looked like a freaking psycho in that segment, and that was the week prior to WrestleMania. The final segment between those two was a kidnapping, nose bleeding, psychotic segment. Like, they did it so well that I still don't get why we haven't had another 5-star feud from women after that.
The crazy fan idea was so good. They tried to do it again, I feel like, with Rosa when she debuted, but it just didn't work out. I mean, crazy Mickie, she, like we said, it wasn't done in like 1 month. She's nice and then she just goes crazy for whatever reason. It was well built up from the start to the end.
Let's move to our highlights of this feud.
I mean, can we really choose something else than the WrestleMania 22 match? I mean, there was a long match that ended with crazy psycho Mickie James winning, which I think was a logical choice.
Yes.
I don't think it would have the same impact if Trish retained that title.
I think my highlight, even though the WrestleMania match, it was awesome, and let's remember we had that controversial B-leak segment that was scrapped from the DVD and from everything. I'm gonna go with the kidnap segment. One of the best segments I've ever seen. You didn't even have to slut shame anyone in the segment to make people pop.
Yeah, because that true, back then, more storyline was like slut shaming, and I hate that. I hate when they do that. So that was a change for once.
Because it had like a unique storyline. going into the matches. The first match they had was basically a fan against idol match, whereas the second one became more of like a frustrated psycho girl with her former idol. And even their third match at Backlash was the end of the feud because of Trish injury, was two crazy chicks at this point because Trish started to dress up as Mickie James too. It was also different, which made everything, like you said, even if it lasts a really long time, it wasn't something boring at any point. Let's move to our next feud, and it is going to be one feud that was mentioned in the comments a couple times in part number 1, and it's going to be Brie Bella against Stephanie McMahon from 2014. It's because it was unique too. It felt special because Brie was coming in with Daniel Bryan's hype, and then we had Stephanie McMahon who was stepping in the ring for the first time in 10 years. I think that made this feud unique.
Yeah, that started much with the Authority versus Daniel Bryan, and like you said, they started going after Brie and Mickie. Mostly Brie, but to make Ember and force him to retire or quit, force them to quit. So
this feud also was quite long if we talk about Daniel Bryan. If we talk about only the girls, maybe it lasted around 2 months basically, because Brie was out like a month. Even if the feud was still going on, she was supposed to, you know, not be part of the company anymore because she quit.
Yeah, she was in the crowd invited by Mickie and was in a gap match over the other one. She was supporting her sister. They were still building the feud with Stephanie, even if she wasn't wrestling in the matches.
The final battle in this feud was SummerSlam 2014.
Decent match for them because neither of them is the best wrestler. The storyline here again build it for people to be interested in. And I mean, we love a bad bitch Stephanie. We love against the biggest babyface they had in the woman wrestler back then.
Yeah, I mostly enjoyed the segments. The match wasn't bad, like you said, but overall it had nothing spectacular. The storytelling is what definitely makes this feud be in this list. Stephanie's a great storyteller. Brie is likable. I think she's more likable than Mickie. And for that reason, along with Daniel Bryan's hype, this match could feel special. I enjoyed segments when Stephanie McMahon was sent to jail, and then also the contract signing. It was interesting, and then it ended up with Stephanie on top, giving a pedigree to each Bella. And a lot of people thought Brie Bella was going to win the match because she was basically destroyed the week or the show prior to SummerSlam, and you know how they do that when that person's gonna win. But Brie,
it's always like that.
But Brie lost.
Well, I mean, they were setting the feud with Mickie, I guess, which we're probably not going to talk about in any of those videos.
Not really.
Sorry, people. I mean, I understand why they did it, and I'm not mad because I'm not the biggest Brie Bella fan. I'm the kind of person that dislike or hate everybody that's everybody loves. When someone gets too much love, I hate them.
Highlight from this feud for you?
It was mostly Stephanie's work, because I mean, I love a bad bitch. So I like the top woman because that's what Stephanie is against the underdog. I like that aspect to the feud.
I would go actually with the start of the feud. Brie slapped Stephanie after quitting. People were actually expecting Brie to do something. We thought it was going to be maybe something more subtle. So that was a shocker. And I think that's what provided the interest, at least for me, in that feud to see what was going to happen next.
Feud at number 4 would be the newest one, which will be Becky Lynch versus Sasha Banks from 2019. After a return with her blue hair and everything. I like Sasha as a heel. I think during that feud, that was some of her best work. She was more aggressive. I wish it would have kept that instead of putting her with Bayley, but that will be a discussion for another day. It was a short kind of storyline, but they had amazing matches on pay-per-view, and they were both so good.
First, Sasha Banks as the heel is the Sasha Banks everybody needs. Second of all, I think Sasha was vicious, like you said. It reminded me her NXT run. I felt like the boss, like the real boss, was back. Feuding with Becky was something important for Sasha Banks because she's been gone. She needed that relevant opponent to be back at the top. I think, and I know you think the same, that Sasha should have become the Raw Women's Champion in that Hell in a Cell match.
I mean, easily. If people disagree, it's fine, but I think she should have won. Being that vicious heel turn that was so well done. I mean, nobody really expected that when she returned, I guess. So I thought that was well done. That they jumped right into it, build up the attack with the chairs and every week. And
now, something that you mentioned before with Mickie and Trish, that was the most iconic feud ever for you. But I think the Hell in a Cell match, not story, but match, Hell in a Cell match between Becky and Sasha is probably one of the best matches I've seen ever. And I'm not saying women's matches, I'm saying match as a whole. It had creative spots, it was hard hitting, they had chairs and kendo sticks.
Yeah, and I mean, that was back when Becky was still hyped up from the man thing. People, whether they want to admit it or not, they like Sasha. Yes. They get invested in what she does, whether it's to cheer her or boo her. I see you on social media, that's not true. I see you.
She has something that lots of people don't realize that she has, and that's different wrestling styles. Like, she can be a high flyer, she can be an underdog, she could be a vicious heel, she could be a submission-based wrestler.
She reminds me, I mean, wrestling style-wise, a bit like Gail Kim. To me, style-wise, they adapt, and like you said, they could be high flyers. But if it needs to be a technical match, she can pull it out too.
Let's move to the highlights of this feud.
Even though that Clash of Champions match was so good, I mean, I will go with the Hell in a Cell match, which is kind of a logical choice. Because like you said earlier, it was a lot of good spots, aggressive from both Sasha and Becky. And it wasn't a wrestling match, it was the brawl, a fight.
Yes, I agree. And one more time, we're going to have the same highlight. Because of course, Hell in a Cell is going to be my highlight as well. I loved the spot where the chair was hanging from the cell and then Becky ran and did like a drop kick. That's something I haven't seen before in a Hell in a Cell match. Some people thought that Sasha could win the title, and that's something that we're lacking sometimes because most matches or feuds are very predictable. But with that one, we didn't know for sure if Becky was going to retain or not, and that's something that added to this feud. Can you remind us, or can you tell us which feud from NXT we're going to include right now?
Yeah, this time around we're going with another logical feud that will be Asuka versus Ember Moon, which was the undefeated Empress versus the undefeated Ember Moon.
I think people expected Ember Moon to be the one who defeated Asuka and ended her streak winning the NXT Women's Championship. As they had two matches with an injury in between. I would have loved to see Ember Moon winning the title at TakeOver Brooklyn 3 a year after her debut, because it would have made sense. Asuka was going to be called up to the main roster, so why not letting Ember be the one who defeated the streak? I mean, after we saw what happened on the main roster and how Asuka's streak was ended, I think people would have been happier to see Ember be the one that defeated Asuka to, make her move to the main roster, but not as undefeated anymore, just as a powerful woman in the division.
So they didn't have any big star beside Ember Moon. That could have filled that spot too.
Something that didn't make sense for me was when Asuka dropped the title, I think they had number one contenders or qualifying matches to see who was going to become the next NXT Women's Champion, and the fact that Ember Moon won, just the takeover after the one she lost with Asuka, was something, I mean, I was happy for her because she deserved it. She was damn good in the ring, but why couldn't she defeat Asuka in that takeover? And maybe the qualifying matches should have been something to determine who the number one contender was going to be, but you already had a champion waiting.
Yeah, and there was more of a storytelling for the second match at Brooklyn because of the injury that wasn't most likely supposed to be there at first. But the fact that Asuka was the one to injure Ember, and then she came back as a underdog, but she was also out for vengeance because of that injury. That added something to the second match to me.
I mean, and it would have been also a very interesting thing to see how Ember lost her undefeated streak at the hands of Asuka in their first match. Then she would have been somehow a poetic justice for Ember to end Asuka's streak too. Like, meaning both of them were at the same level. Personally, NXT feuds are something very special, but they are more wrestling focused rather than story. What will be your highlight from this feud? It wasn't that story packed, so I guess we're going with matches or spots in matches. What's your highlight?
I'm gonna go with the Brooklyn, I think it was TakeOver 3, the second match that they had. Even though Ember should have won that match, we saw more, I would say, aggressive side of Ember Moon that we didn't see much in their first match. I mean, it was more face versus face. Was Asuka heel?
Asuka was like a twinner in that era, yeah, because she was going against both heel and faces. My highlight is going to be the same match, but I'm going to choose a specific moment from that match. And it was when Asuka kicked out of the Eclipse. People went nuts, and I went nuts because first of all, Asuka was the first person ever to kick out of the Eclipse. And second of all, it looked, I swear, because of the build-up and everything, it looked like Ember was going to win the title from it. Not like some other finishers, like super kicks that everybody kicks out of them now. So it was something very special. Okay, so that was it for part number 2 of Best Rivalries in Women's Wrestling. In the comment section down below, please write your opinions about these 5 feuds. Remember, if your feud is not in this video, maybe it was in part number 1. I'm gonna leave that over here. Or maybe it's yet to come. I'm going to leave Alex Ann YouTube channel over here. She had great content, so also check her out. Well, not check her out, check her channel out. And do you have any final words to finish the video?
Thank you again for having me. I had a lot of fun to talk with you, with your fans as well. I mean, they're not talking with us, but they're watching, so I hope you guys enjoyed. So be nice when you share your opinions as well. We're trying our best here. None of us are speaking English normally, so be nice with that as well.
Please.
Keep that in mind.
Alright, so I'm gonna leave my Instagram over here like always. If you want to send me a message, you can always do it. And I will see you guys next week with another video. Thank you very much.